Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel and welcome to another Christmas card tutorial. These cute little bears are asleep waiting for Santa, and as you can see there's some busy little creatures in the kitchen making some food. For today's card I'm using a creature with stirring. I love this stamp set, it's so cute. And Den Sweet Den. I'm also using the stitched Den dies. The colour palette I'm using today was heavily influenced by one of my favourite crafters, Maureen Simon. She just nails the black and white cards. It almost looks as though she's made a colourful card and put a black and white filter over it. She is just so talented. So I thought I would give it a go, and I noticed when I was swatching all of my greys that there is just such a huge difference between cool greys and warm greys. They are almost entirely different sets of colours. So I went with the cool greys because I feel like it has that proper black and white look. So I'm going to get started colouring my whole little bear scene in these grey colours to make it look as though all the lights are off and these little bears are asleep in the dark. I'll leave you with some music while I colour these in. After finishing off my black and white colouring, it was then time to get onto my colourful pictures, and I swear it was like a little bit funny on my eyes after working out all the shading for grayscale things and then moving back into these beautiful warm colours. So here I am colouring in some little mice and a little gingerbread house. These are going to be on the inside of my card. I had the idea that while the little bears were sleeping, the little mice were off in the kitchen cooking up some delicious things for them to enjoy the next day. And so the lights are on, and that's why the mice are so colourful. That, and I just love this stamp set so much, I had to find an excuse to sneak these little mice into this card somewhere. Plus I had never made a card like this before, where part of the front of the card opens up to look inside into the middle of it. I found it really tricky. If you've got any tips on how to make these cards, please put them in the comments below or send me a message on Instagram. I just found it really tricky. I couldn't cut things properly. You'll see a little bit later. It was a bit of a mess, but I do quite like how it turned out in the end. I can definitely improve on this design. really wanted to try something a little bit different with the front of this card. I know it was all black and white, but I wanted just one little thing to be colourful so that it would really stand out. I cut these tiny little Christmas lights from one of the Build-A-House add-on die sets. I coloured them to look like little Christmas lights, and then I cut them all off so I could use them as individual lights for the Christmas tree. To make it look like these little lights were glowing, I grabbed a cotton tip and rubbed some ink where I wanted to put the lights in matching colours. I was hoping that this would make it look like those tiny lights had this itty bitty glow around them and make them stand out just a little bit more on the tree. To make the front of my card, I needed to choose cardstocks and papers that were also in cool greys so that they matched my bears. I cut a large piece of grey cardstock for my front, rounded my corners, and then I cut the largest stem piece out of this so that you could peek into the little bear's home. I used some grey pattern paper for their wallpaper and just some plain grey cardstock for their carpet. With so much shading going on my bears and in that scene, my cardstock was looking very flat. So I decided to go over the edges with some dark ink. I think I'm using the black soot for this one, just to rough up the edges a little bit and give the front of my card a little bit more depth. I did the same for the carpet because again it was just looking a little too flat. To add a bit of sparkle to the front of my card, because let's face it, it wouldn't be one of my cards if these didn't come out, I used some of my white gold watercolour pigment and sprinkled it over the top. I then did the same with some black soot ink that I had watered down, just to add more texture to the front of this card. Once that had dried, I wanted to give the whole front of this card a bit of dimension, and I didn't want the den to be sitting directly onto the little scene with the bears. I wanted it to look as though you were looking into their little cave, so I used some kids' craft foam for this. It's got a decent thickness to it. It looks a bit flat at the moment because I'd run it through my die cut machine, but after a couple of hours it pops back up a bit. After I left it to have a break to do that, I then covered it with some double-sided tape and then stuck this entrance to the den over the top. This is where things got a little bit tricky for me because I really wasn't sure how to go about putting a flap in the front of my card, and things got a little bit messy. I was cutting things here and there, I was trimming down bits that maybe didn't need trimming, using decorative dies instead of plain circular dies. So this is where I definitely need to improve on this design. I did at least think enough ahead to make sure that my door could open and that I didn't glue the whole thing down. But like I said, if you've got any tips and tricks for things like this, I would really appreciate it. So here is where I use the decorative die. I didn't really have a circular die that would fit, and I used that one, and honestly it kind of made the inside of the cards look a little bit messy. I'm just going to spend the next couple of minutes assembling the whole front of this card. You will see that I had added a few extra little images, the little lamp and the books. I just felt like this scene needed a few extra little details. But I did them off camera because I'd already shown more than enough of my colouring for this one. I will talk to you in a few minutes. as you can see on the inside of this card, things were still looking a little bit messy. I do try to tidy it up as much as I can. I loaded up the back of my den piece with some double-sided tape and finally put that over my little bear scene. Here I am just quickly putting together that little scene of the mice in the kitchen. And I used a little flap for reference as to where to put that gingerbread house because I wanted that to be the main thing that you see when you peek behind those little books. And with that, this card was complete. Let me know what you think of it. This one was really tricky for me. Everything from trying the new colouring to working out how to put that little scene behind there and showing it off through the little flap on the front. It was all just very tricky, but I am pretty happy with how it turned out in the end. If you like this video, please don't forget to give it a thumbs up and subscribe if you'd like to see more of my Christmas cards coming up over the next few weeks. Thank you so much for watching. Bye.